Welcome back. Do remember that all our top stories can be found on our website. That's channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Do visit m.channelstv.com to view us live on your mobile device. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows phones from their respective stores. We'd also like to encourage you to use the Eyewitness feature in the Channels TV app. If you have pictures or videos you'd like to share with us, just tap the app on your device, swipe to reveal the Eyewitness menu, and follow the instructions. Now, there's certainly controversy as to the disbursement and utilization of bailout funds from the federal government to the state governments, given many of the states have been in the red as far as paying salaries and meeting their financial obligations are concerned. Joining us on the program today is Channels Television Business Editor Bosun Omofaye to shed some light on what's going on exactly. It's always a pleasure to have you, Bosun.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Now, what is the problem as far as the monies? Is there something rotten in the state of Denmark, as they say? Because some protesters in some of the states where salaries are being owed are saying that the bailout funds from the federal government isn't being used for the purpose for which they were meant in some states.
Well, it's becoming a little bit really dicey. And I think the report earlier on your show about the National Assembly, some committee saying, look, we need to look into it. We're not involved in that transaction. Perhaps quite in order. This deal was essentially the federal government gave the order. They sat down with the Minister of Finance, and I think they worked it out and they got the cash. But the question now is, how has it been used? In some of the states, those allegations, as you said, are coming up as to, hold on a second, we're still being owed salaries. But if you remember that President Muhammadu Buhari was quite emphatic about what these funds should be used for. And the reason was because states are owing salaries to start with, and that is a major issue of their recurrent expenditure. So pay those salaries workers, because he doesn't want to see Nigerians suffer, because things are difficult already, and that's what President Buhari said. So it would be difficult, therefore, for some, very hard to prove, therefore, for some state governments to have received part of this bailout. Some have gotten 10, some got 20 billions and what have you, and they haven't paid salaries. This had to be looked at. So the oversight here that the National Assembly, some members of the legislative chambers are asking for is, look, show us what you spend this money on, and that is quite in order. So in a manner, if you ask me, yes, I support that oversight function of disclosure to find out if there have been diversion, if some of these recurrent salaries have been diverted to capital projects or into other sources that are not clear.
Secondly, do we know whether all the states have gotten their bailout funds? And how is that different, or is that the same as what the finance minister, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, was saying, that they had to meet a certain criteria for the states to get finance?
No, the fund that was approved late last year by the president had no condition attached to it. The president says, give this to them. They shared it, but it will be deducted from their monthly FAC allocations. If you remember, in the month of May, I guess, or March, the allocation, there was no deduction because what was shared was really small. So the federal government said, we're giving you a month waiver that we will not deduct what you're owing the government, which was shared to you as the bailout. So that means that the states had another window of 1 month. I'm not sure if that was repeated the following month, which was a moratorium to pay back. But the question is that the second set of bailouts came in which the loans that the state governments or some state governments have with the banks or commercial banks are restructured into FGN bonds. The third layer of bailout is that government is now securing another 9 billion and standing as a guarantor for another 90 billion. So you've had 3 layers of bailout here. The first was the first set, which was cash. The second was to bring all their bank loans and sit down with the banks and restructure this into long-term bonds for the state, in which part of the government also take part of that bond. The third was the 90 billion, which was just about a month ago, that some states are asking for 20 billion, 10 billion, 5 billion, depending on what. Now, the National Assembly are saying all these processes, we've never been part of it. It has
In the
not
first
been
place.
discussed at the floor. It's between the executive and the state governments only. We want to know what is going on here, because at the various constituencies, folks are asking their legislatures, hold on a second, ask the state governments what they've done with this money.
Now, going forward, obviously, it's crippling services, it's crippling the government's ability to provide its services to the people at the local government level, in the education sector, with the teachers, in the health sector. If this isn't solved and the money doesn't trickle down as it's supposed to, what are the implications?
I'll tell you the implications, and I don't want to mention, but one particular state in southwest Nigeria, where teachers, other workers are agitating, things are really bad. If you look at it, the civil servants are, quote unquote, the engine of growth, as it were. In this particular state in the southwest, the state government the teachers can't send students and pupils back home to bring their school fees because they're aware that the parents haven't been paid. So the teachers are not paid. Parents of school children are not paid. So teachers are teaching for free, in a manner of speaking. Parents can't pay school fees. So you're beginning to find out that the problem is getting a lot bigger and wider. How would you chase children out of schools who haven't paid school fees because you know that their parents who are civil servants haven't been paid by the state government? And this particular state government had billions and billions of capital projects that hasn't been completed. Money is going down. Now the workers are on strike and they're closing this governor's office or blocking his house and what have you. It's becoming a problem at the government level, and it's trickling down to the social populace, in which those who work in the governor's office and across that particular state can't pay. So the consumption is going low, isn't it? Spending, disposable income is getting shrinked. It's beginning to affect transport, it's beginning to affect food, and a lot of other things. Now, if they can't pay school fees, then they can't pay their landlords. If they can't pay the landlords can't pay his own children's school fees. That means the landlords have no disposable income.
So we have a domino effect.
So we have a domino effect here. It's like a house of cards, and it's coming down on everybody's head. And once that happens in a particular state, you can't pay personal income tax to the government. Companies within that environment and doing trade will be affected. If you're producing in Lagos and you're transporting goods, consumer goods to that particular state, you're reducing, isn't it? Because nobody to buy them because they haven't been paid salaries. So if you have a business sitting in Lagos, for example, what happens in a state hundreds of kilometers away is going to impact you. So it's a national issue. It's not just, so I think it's in order for the National Assembly, but I think it's late.
Yeah,
initially they would have said at the day that they said, look, don't do this. Tell the Ministry of Finance and whatever. I said, don't do it this way. We want to be part of it first to be sure what is going to be done.
Not to give a pessimistic outlook, but more, I want you to paint a realistic outlook of the bailout funds in the first place. How far does it go to help to put the governments back in the green, as it were?
At the level of the state governments, things were really, really bad. And things are bad.
Is the money enough? For the money have been enough?
They all carry large recurrent expenditure, which is staff salaries and whatever you allowances and things like that. So I'm not sure it's enough. But
it would have helped if
perhaps it would have helped. Now you're talking about 5, 6, 9 months in some cases. So it is that bad.
Exactly.
And you look at some states that sit on oil, like Akwa Ibom, being part of the entire conversation. So it's a very serious issue. But it's not something that happened overnight. This is not a natural disaster. It's an unnatural disaster.
Okay.
Years ago,
it's a man-made disaster.
It's a man-made disaster. Again, we all know how we got to this level. Let's hope
that.
News.
Yes, let's hope that. It's just one of the challenges of 2016 for the country. But let's leave it there.
I hope so.
Many thanks.
I hope so. My pleasure.
Channels Television Senior Business Editor Bosun Omafaye, with his perspective on the bailout funds from the federal government to the states' governments. Coming up in just a moment, news across Nigeria, the building collapse in Anambra State and what the experts are doing to find out how it happened. Don't go away.